Alright, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and today I am doing a review for Dr. Stone 4D Science. This is the epilogue of Dr. Stone. This did not get animated. This is basically three chapters after the events of the anime and I guess the manga. This is the epilogue basically of Dr. Stone. It didn't get animated, so I did get around to reading it in manga format, and so yeah, this is going to be kind of just similar to the other manga exclusive reviews. I'm not going to give a score at the end. I'm just going to give my thoughts on the actual three chapters basically. So yeah, this is basically the three chapters after the anime, and it follows the arc basically that kind of gets teased at the end of the anime. It's a spoiler alert, by the way, for anyone that doesn't want to get spoiled, but yeah, after the anime basically concluded with them teasing, basically Senku teasing that they are going to be attempting to build a time machine. So these three chapters kind of like follow the events of that happening, and so they realize, okay, we need a lot of fuel. We need like a lot of energy, like something exawatts, which is equal to like, I don't know, quintillion, something related to quintillion amount of power, and so maybe 1 quintillion amount of energy. I don't know, but anyway, so Zeno basically says that they can get it from the moon because the moon has like a lot of helium-3, I'm pretty sure, which is a very powerful isotope. So now basically they have it's like they want to build the time machine, but then they need to get the energy for the time machine from the moon. So part of the three chapters is them coming up with a way in order to establish a lunar base and not having to like constantly go back and forth and stuff. So they come up with the idea to create a space elevator and just go back and forth, and so they utilize the petrification beam. The petrification beam, it can basically, like, it can petrify any living organism, so it can also petrify stuff like hair. It can petrify web from, I think, at first they were going to use spiders, but then they didn't have enough spider webbing, so they ended up going with silk, I'm pretty sure, silk from silkworms, I guess, and so yeah, they build a elevator, or they're in the process of doing that. And a big thing with these three chapters is that at the very start, like the way it begins is actually Senku from the past, his younger self, tried to receive a message. He basically said, like, if I manage to create time travel in the future, then by now I will make sure to send a message to myself in the present. And so he doesn't end up receiving a message, but then they have the same idea to do it. I think Chrome has the idea to do it, basically. Like, that's a big thing, where it's like they're banking on kind of them receiving a message from the future to prove that they actually managed to successfully create time travel. So at some point, they do manage to actually receive a message through, I think, Morse code via the Petra beam or something like that. Again, the show, like, I can't always explain the science greatly, but eventually, so they receive a message, and they receive it from Byakuya, so they actually think that, wow, then we successfully achieved time travel in the future, and also we managed to, like, Byakuya somehow is alive, so maybe they're thinking, like, okay, maybe we saved him through time travel, I'm pretty sure. So, but then later on, Ryusui ends up realizing that there's like not a lot of mosquitoes around, and so it's because that he sees that they were petrified, and then he goes to confront Y-Man, basically saying how Y-Man tricked everyone by sending the fake message out in order to motivate them into thinking that they ultimately solved time travel in the future. And then then there's kind of then this is kind of by now the end of the actual epilogue, where basically Y-Man just gives some speech about how he has complete faith in humanity, that they will make time travel possible, something about emotions and stuff. I don't know, the specifics are kind of leaving me at the moment, but anyway, yeah, it ends with basically, I think they ultimately, there's also, so that I'm not really good at explaining the specifics of this, but eventually they go to Treasure Island to find where Byakuya was buried, and then there was something about how he would have ended up getting petrified if they used the time machine, based on them sending like the petrification beams into the past, I think. And so he would have been petrified, and then ultimately if he did really get petrified, then the people of the past would have buried him. And so they go to basically the three chapters end with everyone going to the burial site, and they're about to dig up Byakuya, and then Senku doing his famous line, "Get excited" and all that. So yeah, I didn't do a good job of really recapping what happens, but yeah, in total, it's just them kind of, it's a continuation of the ending of the anime, where they are actually pursuing the arc. It's more of the stuff like that the actual show had, where they are attempting to achieve a technology in the stone world. Well, at this point, they're not really in the stone world anymore. If anything, they've surpassed the technology from the past. So but it's still very much like them coming up with plans, them thinking of ideas and stuff. That you got all like the, I'm not going to say all the cast of characters. There's a lot of characters that are just not in this, but that's also been the case from season 4, part 3, where they just no longer have the ability to utilize all of the huge cast of characters. So yeah. Anyway, so it's good. Like, I do like it's just more of what I like about the show, them trying to achieve some impossible feat with the technology that they have at the time. I think that it's good, but the big thing is that it just doesn't really wrap up in the end. It's like by the time the 3 chapters ends, they're still kind of trying to pursue time travel, and then we don't actually get a conclusion on like what ends up happening. It ends with them going to dig up the burial site of Byakuya, and I guess it's meant to like be ambiguous of like, okay, did they actually find his stone statue? Because if they did find a stone statue, that implies that they figured out time travel, or if they don't, then that, like, I guess demotivates them or something like that. But yeah, overall, it's like there's not really a conclusion, so it's like a nice, I guess, start. It's like kind of just a nice continuation, but we don't ultimately get a conclusion of this arc that they kind of start. So that is a bit of a shame. I'm hoping that at some point maybe, you know, there'll be a sequel series, or at the very least I'm hoping that this like these 3 chapters, they get animated as like a special or something at some point, because I do think that this would have actually been a more kind of interesting ending for, like, the anime itself ended with the tease of time travel. This one actually has them pursuing it, and then even so, like, I feel like this would have been a better conclusion, where it's like they're pursuing time travel, and then ultimately, like, the show could have ended on, I guess, whether or not they succeeded with it, rather than, well, I don't know if that could have been more unsatisfying, I guess, if that was animated. So I'm not sure, but I would have liked to see this included in the actual series, and I do hope at some point it does get animated in the future, or there's a sequel manga where we actually get to find out like what happens in the continuation. Yeah, besides that stuff, let's see here. Chrome and Ruri, they ended up getting married finally, so that is cool. There's a bit of a tease, I guess, of who Senku will end up getting married in the future, but that, I guess, that's just like a small little tease for the fans out there, but nothing ends up happening with that. Anything else? Let's see here. You get more of, you know, just more of the Kaseki. He ultimately tells Chrome like tells him about the immortality, and Kaseki says ultimately he wouldn't want to become petrified and gain the quote unquote immortality, because he says that ultimately it's not gonna reverse his aging, so he'd rather spend time with his friends and the people that he, you know, his friends and like the people he loves and stuff. So he'd rather be with them and die naturally rather than like missing out on all the stuff. And then ultimately he says like, I'll leave behind science for the future generations and stuff. So yeah, anything else? Not really. Like, again, this is just kind of a continuation. I do recommend like reading it, because I do think that it's definitely good. Like, if you like the regular Dr. Stone stuff that the actual series is about, this is just more of that, which is always nice to see. And yeah, ultimately, it is a shame that we don't actually get like a proper conclusion. Hopefully at some point, maybe in the future we will, which would be nice, but as of the moment, it just kind of ends with an ambiguous note on whether or not like they kind of will succeed in the future with the time travel or not. So yeah, overall, just, again, I'm not giving a score to this, but yeah, it was a good read. It's not too long. It's 3 chapters. It only took like, I think, about half an hour, I think. So yeah, ultimately, just I don't remember how I end off these manga exclusive reviews, but ultimately, like, I'll say a good read, but nothing that is really, it's not going to be like a more satisfying conclusion that I guess the anime had. It's just like more of the regular Dr. Stone plot that is just enjoyable to see unfold, I guess. So yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it, so let's leave it at that.